Seawater temperature affects marine organisms by changing the reaction rates within their cells. Although each species has a specific range of temperature at which it can live, the warmer the water gets, the faster the reactions, and the cooler the water, the slower the reactions. An organism's response to water temperature is considered to be cold-blooded, or poikilothermic, or warm-blooded, homeothermic, depending on their ability to control their internal body temperature. If any species is moved out of its temperature tolerance range, it may die in a short time, although temperatures on the cool side of the range are easier for organisms to tolerate than temperatures on the warm side. This is because cell reactions just slow down in the cold, but may speed up over 6 times the normal levels for each 10 degrees of Celsius of heat. Cold-blooded, poikilothermic marine organisms lack any temperature controls. These include marine plants, invertebrates, most fish, and marine reptiles. These species each have their specific temperature tolerance range within which they must live. Some are adapted to polar temperatures, some to tropical temperatures. Some have a narrow range and thus are very restricted, and some have a wide range and are thus less restricted. Warm-blood, homeothermic marine organisms have some type of internal temperature controls to maintain a constant body temperature. These organisms include a few fish, all seabirds, and mammals. This ability allows these warm-blooded marine species to migrate over vast distances through various temperatures without problems and includes some of the animals on Earth with the longest migrations. Temperature, salinity, and pressure affect the density of seawater as well. Large water masses of different densities are important in the layering of the ocean water. More dense water sinks. As temperature increases, water becomes less dense. As salinity increases, water becomes more dense. As pressure increases, water becomes more dense. A cold, highly saline, deep mass of water is very dense, whereas a warm, less saline and surface water mass is less dense. When large water masses with different densities meet, the denser water mass slips under the less dense mass. These responses to density are the reason for some of the deep ocean circulating models. The concentration of dissolved oxygen and carbon dioxide are very important for marine life forms. Although both oxygen and carbon dioxide are a gas when outside the water, they dissolve to a certain extent in liquid seawater. Dissolved oxygen is what animals with gills use for respiration. Dissolved carbon dioxide is what marine plants use for photosynthesis. The amount of dissolved gases varies according to the types of life forms in the water. Most living species need oxygen to keep their cells alive, both plants and animals, and are constantly using it up. Replenishment of dissolved oxygen comes from the photosynthetic activity of plants during daylight hours only, and from surface diffusion to a lesser extent. If there are a large number of plants in a marine water mass, then the oxygen levels can be quite high during the day. If there are few plants but a large number of animals in a marine water mass, then the oxygen levels can be quite low. Oxygen is measured in parts per million, and levels can range from 0 to over 200 ppm in temperature water. It only reaches 20 when there are a lot of plants in the water. It is very sunny with lots of nutrients, and the wind is whipping up the surface into a froth. In any water mass, there is a maximum amount of dissolved gas that can be found, after which the gas no longer dissolves but bubbles to the surface. This maximum amount increases with a decrease in temperature. Thus, cold water masses can hold more dissolved gases, but they also have none if it has been used up. So just because a water mass is cold, it does not mean it has a lot of dissolved gases. This concept is a little bit tricky, but just remember that the amount of dissolved gases in seawater depends more on the types of life forms, plant and animals, that are present and their relative proportions. Fertilizers like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are important for plant growth and are called nutrients. The level of dissolved nutrients increases from animal feces and decomposition from bacteria and fungi. Surface water often may be lacking in nutrients because feces and dead matter tend to settle to the bottom of the ocean. Most decomposition is thus at the bottom of the ocean. In the ocean's most surface water is separated from bottom water by a thermocline, seasonal in temperature and marginal polar regions, constant in tropics. which means that once surface nutrients get used up by the plants there, they become a limiting factor for the growth of new plants. Plants must be at the surface for the light. Nutrients are returned to surface waters by a special type of current called upwelling, and it is in these areas of upwelling that we find the highest productivity of marine life. Silica and iron may also be considered important marine nutrients, as their lack can limit the amount of productivity in an area. Silica is needed by diatoms, one of the main phytoplanktonic organisms that forms the base of many marine food chains. Iron is just recently being discovered to be a limiting factor for phytoplankton. pH is a measure of the acidity or alkalinity of a substance and is one of the stable measurements in seawater. Once water has an excellent buffering system with the interaction of carbon dioxide and water, so that it is generally always at a pH of 7.5 to 8.5. Neutral water is a pH of 7, while acidic water are less than 7, down to 1, which is highly acidic, and alkaline substances are more than 7, up to 14, which is highly alkaline. Anything either highly acidic or alkaline would kill marine life, but the oceans are very stable with regard to pH. If seawater was out of normal range,